You are a Locked On Braves postcast, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into the Braves postcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Grant McAuley alongside Jake Mastroianni after a 3-1 Braves win in the finale of a 3-game set and a 7-game homestand that you might hear this phrase a few times on the show. Was a bit of a mixed bag for the Braves, but they needed this series victory, and they were able to pull it out on Sunday. We're going to talk all about that and, of course, get you set up for what's upcoming for the Braves, which is a 3-city road trip that'll get started on Tuesday after, I'm reading, a day off. That's not a typo. The Braves are actually getting a day off. That'll happen on Monday. We'll talk a little bit about that more later. And, Jake, I guess it can be all smiles after a game in which the pitching continued to deliver, which by and large it has for the Braves all season long. The offense was timely, and it was just enough to grab this win over the A's. And you just felt like you needed this series in order to not feel like this homestand was pretty much just throwing it away and not being able to take advantage of a couple of teams you really felt like you could get right against.
Yeah, losing 3 straight series to the Pirates, Nationals, and A's, that'd be a little hard to kind of overcome. Obviously, you can do it over a long season, but just for, the mood going forward, you felt like you really needed to win this series at home before you do get the off day and go out on the road. So glad they were able to get that done on Sunday.
Yeah, and the Braves have been in some games in which their offense, maybe a hit or a run here or there could have changed the complexion of how some of these series have gone. Hey, how the month of May went for the Braves, who finished a game under 500 for the month, the first time that they'd done that since way back in 2022. In other words, if they could just get a little bit more consistency at the plate, they might find themselves winning a few more series. That sounds pretty rudimentary, but when you've gone as long as the Braves have, trying to find those answers individually and collectively, you just kind of have to continue to wonder how much longer until the talent starts to win out and this club starts to do the things it's capable of. And maybe even a game like Saturday where I know you didn't win and it was disappointing, and Chris Sale really had his first bad start in a Braves uniform and gave up more runs than he had the entire previous month. The offense started to show you something. And I think even with the timely hits today, Jake, the Braves were able to show that they are capable of A, getting a lead, B, coming back, and then C, being able to add on a little bit and at least give the bullpen some breathing room down there in the late innings.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't look like much, and we've talked about it with this Braves offense. I'm not really going to get too excited about it until we see, a week-long stretch of just good at-bats. But I'll say I was pretty encouraged, even in Friday's game and today's game, because, as you know, we come on these postcasts, a lot of things I look up and down the lineup, and I say, did everybody contribute in some way? And in all 3 games, pretty much everybody did. Again, even in the Friday and Sunday games where they didn't score a lot of runs. I mean, you look at today, everybody had a hit except Michael Harris and Orlando Arcia, and Michael, got on base. At least he had a walk. It was a rough day for Arcia, who seemed to come up in a lot of big spots, unfortunately. But, everybody else, had a hand in this and getting hits, getting on base. So, that's what I want to see from this Braves offense, is just some more consistency from top to bottom. You can't just have 1 or 2 guys here at the top doing it and nobody else doing anything, or 1 or 2 guys at the bottom doing it and nobody at the top doing it. There's got to be some consistency throughout the lineup, and you just haven't gotten that a lot this year. So while there were some frustrations still, particularly in Friday and Sunday's game, not scoring a lot of runs, not taking advantage of some opportunities, I thought, overall, you did see more kind of that consistency up and down. And then Saturday's game for me is just, I don't know, we're not doing a whole recap of the whole thing, but Saturday's game for me, that was the one where, I've been looking for that game where the pitching didn't have it and the offense could come back and get that win. And I feel like, that's the game I've been looking for to kind of get this offense going. And offense did come back. Unfortunately, pitching just couldn't hold on. But I'm still, I guess, looking for that game where, the pitching's just not there and the offense is able to win one for them like they did really the first 2 weeks of the season before the starting pitching got going.
Yeah, it's crazy the way that pendulum swung back the other direction, and it really hasn't seemed to come back to perhaps the offense being the one that does the heavy lifting. The pitching has certainly done that, but you're going to have to allow for some bad days for the pitching staff because they're not all going to be gems. And the level that Chris Sale was pitching in the month of May, I don't think anybody was realistically expecting him to do that every single month of the year, though it certainly would be nice. And he certainly showed that he's capable of being the guy that the Braves wanted to get. But when it came to Sunday, it did feel like, could there be a follow-up to a big offensive explosion? The answer to that, unfortunately, was no, but it was enough to win. So, how many nits can you pick as far as that is concerned? But yeah, it's funny that you brought that up about Orlando Arcia, who had been hitting up in the order for a number of games. And I know folks were looking at it saying, why is Arcia hitting up there? I know that he may have shorted out some rallies prior to getting up there, but it's crazy the way that the game of baseball will find you with a bunch of runners on base and the guy that you wanted batting ninth, hitting ninth, and then it comes down to kind of being the linchpin for maybe blowing the game open anyway. Because again, the Braves did win this game. So, it's just kind of one of the funny observations I guess I have of this game and of, changing around your lineup and best laid plans. Perhaps that's the easy way to put it.
Yeah, I mean, baseball's can be a cruel game at times. Like you say, you move the guy around and he comes up in some big spots. Like you said, maybe not necessarily to win the game, but to kind of put the game away late and just not able to come through. You also look at this game and we've been talking about it all year. I feel like the Braves have been, stinging baseballs just with, loud outs. But then in this one, you look, Riley got a bloop double that just kind of dropped in. Sean Murphy got a big bloop double to give the Braves the lead. I don't know what it is, Grant. We joke about it. Maybe the Braves need to stop hitting the ball so hard. Maybe that's the recipe with this baseball that we're playing with right now. It's somewhat frustrating. But in the end, I mean, they got the hits that they needed to get the wins. But I'd love to see them. I'd love Austin Riley to get rewarded for a 102-mile-per-hour line drive with the bases loaded. I'd love to see them start getting rewarded for more of these really good swings.
Yeah, and that was a really good swing. You bring that up. I mean, he jumped all over a baseball. Unfortunately, it feels like that's kind of been the Braves' lot thus far of the first couple of months and couple of days now here in the month of June even. It's just that's going to turn. You have to believe at some point that's going to even out. It's just hard to watch it when you feel like it's kind of day over day and stacking up. And then the strikeouts have started to creep up for the Braves in the month of May. And I think you could point directly at the fact that you got to be pressing at that point. When you're not getting the results that you're used to, it's human nature. You're going to try harder. And sometimes the harder you try and the more you try to make something happen, the less likely it is to occur. And that is clearly true in a game that's as difficult as baseball can be. Runs knocked in this game. Matt Olson got the Braves on the board. Also, you had Ozzie Albies knocking in a run. Sean Murphy, though, that double that he dropped down the right field line just inside the chalk, I thought that was the right fielder's ball all the way. Fortunately, just no communication, it seemed like, from the A's, or just not enough at the time, and the ball fell in. That's the exact kind of break that the Braves really hadn't been getting, especially lately. So it was good to see that one kind of go for the Braves as opposed to against them, because I feel like I've watched it happen on the other side quite a bit.
Yeah, when we've seen it with the Braves too. We talked about it a game the other night where Matt Olson was, 6 inches away from getting a ball down the line and possibly scoring a run. It's just none of that seems to be going the Braves' way. So, again, while I am still frustrated that the good contact is not resulting in hits, so you did see at least some things go the Braves' way with a couple of bloop hits there and there. Jared Kelenic had a broken bat double as well in this one. So, again, it's just everything seems to be going against the Braves during this stretch they're on. And again, I'm not trying to make excuses for them. The strikeouts haven't been great. The at-bats haven't been great. But, again, when you compound that with the fact that every ball that you hit is just foul, every ball the other team hit is just fair, it just makes for a very frustrating watch. And I know a lot of Braves fans have been feeling that. This team hasn't been a lot of fun to watch over the last month or so. But, again, I feel like in the end, and we'll keep saying it, I feel like we will get back to that point.
Yeah, and I do. Again, I'll say it again. I feel like the talent's going to eventually win out. It is going to normalize. And, you think about how rough the month of May was from a viewing experience, with the expectation being that the Braves offense was going to be what really carries this team and that the pitching would certainly do its part. But the feature was supposed to be the Braves offense. It's been the exact opposite for quite some time, save about once a week when the offense just goes crazy and piles up 7, 8, 9 runs. It hasn't been the consistent group that we saw a year ago. And forget setting records. Just the ability of these guys to kind of hit towards their norms, even if you correct for career highs a year ago. I mean, Matt Olson and Austin Riley are 35 homer hitters. Ronald Acuna Jr., where he healthy, is a 35-plus homer hitter. Ozzie Albies is as well. And you start to look at all of that. The home run ball is not coming as much. And I don't really feel like they were over-reliant on the home run. They just hit so many last year that it may have felt that way. But the Braves, they cut their strikeout rate as a team. They were getting the hits they needed. They took their walks. All of those are what made that team so good a year ago. But as we've seen, and we got the sample size at this point, Jake, and we talked about this as well, you are who the numbers say you are now. You can't look back at last year and expect this to be a continuation of that. But, again, to kind of delve into this conversation that we always find our way back to, there is a significant amount of the season left for this team to get right, and some signs, at least, in this Oakland series that maybe they have a chance to do just that in taking 2 out of 3. We got to talk some about Charlie Morton getting his bounce back effort against the Oakland Athletics after a really disappointing start way back against the Washington Nationals earlier in the week. And of course, we're going to take a look at what's going to be going on this coming week as the Braves hit the road. They will be heading to Boston to take on the Red Sox in a quick 2-game series. We'll talk about that and more as the Braves postcast continues. With Policy Genius, you can find life insurance policies that start at just $292 per year for $1 million worth of coverage. Some options offer same-day approval and avoid unnecessary medical exams. Policy Genius helps you compare your options from top companies, and their team of licensed experts is on hand to help talk you through that process. Easily compare quotes from America's top insurers in just a few clicks and find your lowest price. Policy Genius gives you an unbiased advice from a licensed expert support team. Thousands of 5-star reviews on Google and Trustpilot from customers who found the best fit for their needs. You can find those and check your life insurance off your to-do list in no time with Policy Genius. Head over to policygenius.com/lockedon to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you could save. That is policygenius.com/lockedonMLB. Well, Jake, let's look inside the box score and the line score of today's game. We'll start with the latter. The Braves improved to 33-24 with 3 runs on 7 hits, no errors for Atlanta. They did leave 9 men on base, did the Braves. Oakland, meanwhile, a run on just 2 hits. That should underscore how good the pitching was on this day. We'll get into that. Oakland committed 1 error and left 7 men on base. A's dropped to 24-37 on the season. The winning pitcher for the Atlanta Braves in this game was Dylan Lee, who came on with a 1-0 lead, gave up a homer to the first batter he faced, but then was really able to settle in, get out of that, and the rest of the bullpen certainly did its part with Joe Jimenez and Raisel Iglesias tossing scoreless ball thereafter, and Charlie Morton starting it out with 6 innings of 1-hit ball to keep the A's off the board. Adams takes the loss for the Oakland Athletics, and it's the 15th save of the year for Raisel Iglesias as well. Let's start with Charlie Morton, who I think, Jake, really needed this one. He just had just one of his roughest starts, I think, in a Braves uniform last time out against the Washington Nationals. He got jumped for a bunch of runs. I know that here or there, maybe if a play is made here or he gets a call, on a check swing or what have you, all of that we can probably parse out of just about every single game. But it's safe to say that last time out, Charlie Morton didn't get the results he wanted. This, though, was quite a nice outing for him, even though he was able to work around some walks, including a couple in his final inning with 2 outs that might have made this line look a little bit different than it was.
Yeah, it seemed to be getting squeezed a little bit there in that last inning for Charlie Morton. And, you look at it, 5 walks on the day. You want, 1 hit obviously is great. Yeah. But the one thing we look at with Charlie Morton are the walks, the hits, batters, and the home runs. And, didn't give up any home runs in this one, but did walk 5, hit a batter. But, as we said, that strike zone kind of moved around on him, especially in that last inning. But just 1 hit. And, you look at the usage of Charlie Morton's pitches in this one. It was curveball changeup. I mean, he only threw the 4-seam 15 times, threw 13 sinkers, threw 11 cutters, but 40 curveballs, 18 changeups. So really just kind of went with the off-speed stuff and got a lot of weak contact, 78.8 mile per hour average exit velocity again. So we've talked about it this year. It feels like Charlie Morton's trying to change things up, mix things here or there to figure out, what he talked about it after his last game. I feel like trying to figure out what type of pitcher is going to be most effective for him. And it just feels like kind of a continuation of that of, the curveball was working for him. The changeup was working. So he just kind of stuck with it, got that weak contact, and, 6 innings, 1 hit, no earned. You'll certainly take that from any of your starters, despite what it looks like in the walk column for Charlie Morton. So great outing for him again, after, some rough ones that he's had here lately. 8 earned in his last start. You talked about, 3 earned a couple of starts before that. So to see him, get out there, get through 6 innings, no earned, give his team a chance to win, I'm sure that felt great for Charlie.
Yeah, and the Braves certainly needed the pitching to be sharp, knowing that the offense has been, no pun intended, hit or miss over the course of this homestand and over the course of really the last month. As you look at what Charlie Morton is capable of, I think we got a pretty good indication of it for the most part this year. His ERA drops down below 4. And again, and I've said this many times, and I believe this, I mean, if there were other major league teams where one of their biggest question marks is Charlie Morton is their 4th starter, I think a lot of teams would sign up for that because, quite frankly, even at 40 years old, he still finds a way, again, more times than not, to be competitive out there. I talked to Charlie for a long time yesterday before this start, and he said, I have looked at the way that I am pitching this year and tried to really tailor it just exactly to your point. I could still reach back and throw 96 if I need to, but not every situation calls for that. And I think that kind of tells you, the continued evolution of a pitcher who was really a late bloomer in his career to continue to try to find ways to work the problem and, find a little bit more consistency. And I agree. I do feel like he got squeezed a little bit in this one, but you can walk 5 guys when you only give up 1 hit, I guess might be the big takeaway from this one. And Charlie Morton was far more good than bad. And I think that's a pretty easy way to describe his tenure in an Atlanta Braves uniform. And that might be selling him a little bit short.
Yeah, I mean, I think Braves look at the price tag for Charlie Morton. That kind of hurts him sometimes because you look at a $20 million pitcher who's your number 4. And I know he's pitched better than that even at times, but I think that kind of discredits what Charlie Morton has done in his tenure in a Braves uniform, where, as you said, he's been more good than bad, certainly, even if he has some ups and downs here or there. But certainly be great. And Grant, this is definitely a conversation for another time, but when is the win stat going to get changed? Because Dylan Lee gets the win. He's the guy that came in and blew the save. Charlie Morton pitches a great game and doesn't get anything. Again, that's that can take us on a tangent there, but I just hate that for Charlie Morton. He wasn't able to get the win after pitching so well.
Yeah, and what's funny is, like, if the starter doesn't go the requisite amount of innings, then the official scorer has discretion, especially in those nonsense spring training games, to decide, who's going to get the win in those. And I don't know. I mean, and I don't know that we're going to be able to solve it on this edition of the podcast, but if Major League Baseball really wanted to take a long look at things, the amount of vulture wins that have gone on in baseball in the last 30 years might be something to get a Senate committee about. But again, another discussion for another time. Looking up and down the lineup for the Braves, nobody had more than 1 hit. Austin Riley, Marcell Ozuna, Matt Olson, Ozzie Albies, Adam Duvall, Jared Kelenic, and Sean Murphy, each with a hit in this one. And it was Olson, Murphy, and Albies who drove in the runs. Funny to see that the first run of the day, a former Oakland Athletic knocked it in. The go-ahead hit, a former Oakland Athletic, also had that for the Atlanta Braves, who had a couple of former Oakland players sting their old team. And obviously, every run that they could get today was at a premium, as they only picked up 3. And for whatever reason, you felt like with Medina coming back from the injured list, maybe he would have a little bit of difficulty against the Braves lineup after getting knocked around in some rehab starts. That wasn't the case for him. I thought he looked pretty good too.
He did. Again, we hate to say it when we talk about this Braves offense, that every pitcher all of a sudden looks really good. But I mean, you're talking about a guy with averages 96 on the fastball. Thought it had some good life to it, a good curveball as well. He had 6 whiffs on 14 swings against that curveball. So, I mean, a good pitcher, but again, at the same time, this Braves offense just has got to get going. I don't care who's on the mound, but certainly give him some credit. Just 2 hits allowed, 2 walks, and 6 strikeouts, and 89 pitches. And again, I didn't know how long he would go in this one, but he was able to get them almost through the 6th inning. Had to use a lot of bullpen arms yesterday, so that was huge for this A's team who came into this series, having already had to use a lot of bullpen. They played a 12-inning game before this series started. They're down one of their best bullpen arms, so that was huge for them. But I just want to see this Braves offense, just really put up some big numbers against whoever's on the mound. And I'm tired at this point of saying, that pitcher had a great game against the Braves. It just feels like it's happening almost every day except for Saturday.
Yeah, it feels like just kind of part of the narrative here over the last 6 weeks or so. I mean, Luis Medina, career ERA well over 5, but as you mentioned, does have some good stuff. Gave up the first inning run and then was nearly able to escape through 6, went 5 2/3. Didn't factor in the decision, the run that he gave up as well, unearned because of a pass ball in the first inning, worth pointing that out. Marcell Ozuna had walked, got to second on the pass ball. Matt Olson knocking him in there. So self-inflicted wound early on for Oakland gave the Braves that early lead. Dylan Lee did come in the 7th inning. Zach Geloff hit the game-tying home run. The Braves, though, had the answer with the Murphy double in the bottom of the 7th. Ozzie Albies with the single in the 8th inning as well. And the Braves left the bases loaded when Orlando Arcia grounded out to third base. It just felt like there were a couple of different chances in both the 7th and the 8th inning. I know you mentioned the Austin Riley one earlier as well, where the Braves, could they have gotten that well-placed, hard-hit ball, could have broken this thing open, and it might look a lot different. It's a 3-1 win in the end, but it did feel like the Braves are maybe making that progress towards taking games like Saturday and finding a way to replicate those moving forward.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, overall on the weekend, I felt pretty encouraged by the offense. I thought, they were getting in opportunities. They were making good contact. Sure, there's still some bad at-bats in there here and there, but for the most part on this weekend, I was really encouraged with what I saw from this offense. Of course, the bar and expectations maybe been lowered a little bit from what we are looking for out of this offense. But, I'd much rather them be in those situations and have those opportunities than have a game where you're just not able to do anything for 9 innings. And again, you have enough of those opportunities over 9 innings. Typically, you're going to come away with something. And the Braves came away with 3 runs in this one. And doesn't seem like much, especially with what we're used to. But again, with the way the pitching has been, that's generally been enough for this Braves offense. So again, love seeing on base. Still want to see those big hits. Still waiting on that to kind of break things open in one of these games. But at least being in those spots. And how about the A's intentionally walking Michael Harris to get to Austin Riley? That was quite a decision there. Maybe tells you a little bit about where this Braves offense is right now. I still don't know if that was the right decision. I guess it worked out, so it was. But like I said, that's where Riley hit a ball 102 that just happened to go right to the right fielder. But either way, I like what I saw from this offense for the most part over the weekend, and hopefully it is a sign of things to come. But I feel like we've been saying that a lot, Grant. So until it actually happens, we'll just wait and see.
Yeah, the Harris decision was interesting because, as we've talked about, he has been swinging at a lot of pitches and sometimes to his detriment outside the strike zone this year. Simply a by the book, put the lefty on, get the righty-righty matchup, but they almost got burned with it when Austin Riley put that ball in play. But right at somebody, the hard hit out is still an out, and the A's were able to escape that jam. And we'll see, what the Braves are able to cobble together as they head out on the road, because that's the next stop for them is going to be 3 cities upcoming, with Boston and Washington and Baltimore all on the schedule. So kind of a mixed bag, if you will, of opponents that the Braves are going to face. And we'll talk about that coming up as the Braves postcast continues right here. Prize Picks is America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 3 million members. It's the easiest and most exciting way to get in on the action while you watch your favorite sports and players. With baseball season in full swing, don't miss your chance to add your favorite players from the diamond to your Prize Picks entries, whether it's strikeouts, RBIs, first inning runs. Take your pick of more or less and add them to your Prize Picks entry today. Download the app, use the code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match of up to $100. That's LOCKEDONMLB in the Prize Picks app. Jake, let's talk a little bit about what's coming up for the Braves. It is starting in Boston on Tuesday after an off day for Atlanta on Monday. It's only 2 games against the Red Sox at Fenway. It's the 2 at home and 2 away series that the Braves have with the Red Sox. Atlanta finishing its long string of games with an off day on Monday. It was a bit of a challenge for the Braves to go all this time, about 2.5 weeks, without an off day, but now they can finally get one of those, and they'll get another on this road trip as well. So maybe that will start to let the team recalibrate a bit, because they've been trying to juggle the usage of the bullpen arms and, of course, trying to solve the last spot in rotation as well here over the last week or so.
Yeah, and they started out that long stretch of games with a rain delay that really kind of threw a wrench in the rotation plans as well. Had to shuffle some things around, but good to see Spencer Schwellenbach's going to get another opportunity in that Red Sox series. Looking forward to seeing what he can do. And then you got a chance at some revenge against the Nationals on the road, who just beat you at home in a 4-game series. Now you got a chance to go there and hopefully win a series there. But again, this Braves team, it's coming. It is June. We've been talking about it. June's here. It's typically when this offense or this team in general just seems to go off. So hopefully that is going to be the case. They beat Boston twice at home early last month with some really good pitching. So hopefully that will continue. But again, I think we're all sitting here just waiting and watching for this offense to get going a long run. And hopefully it happens over this road trip.
Yeah, that's certainly been the case. A lot of sitting and waiting and hoping that the Braves would kind of get back to being who you expect them to be, offensively speaking. Max Fried's going to be on the mound in the opener. You mentioned Spencer Schwellenbach also going to get a start, his second since coming to the major leagues. Braves are going to see Cutter Crawford and Nick Pivetta again in Boston. Then they've got the 3 games in Washington coming up as the week wears on. Or is it 4 games in Washington, I should say, as the week wears on. But it should be, I think, a good test for the Braves against 2 pitchers that they've already seen. And, this offense, maybe being familiar with these couple of pitchers will help them in the game planning, the execution, and, of course, the outcome when it comes to piling up some runs.
Yeah, I hope so. That, generally you see a pitcher a second time around, you're more prepared for them. Cutter Crawford, he's got off to a real hot start to begin the season. He started to kind of come back down to life a little bit, maybe the same for Nick Pivetta, but obviously 2, good pitchers. And again, we keep saying that with who the Braves are facing. I feel like they faced nothing but good pitchers all season long. But again, hopefully some of that familiarity, seeing them so soon, about less than a month ago, this offense can get going. But again, Max Fried, he has been outstanding himself, so can't wait to see him back on the mound. And I'm really excited to see Spencer Schwellenbach again. I thought he pitched maybe even better than what his line ended up being last time. Obviously gave up that 3-run home run in the 5th inning that was all that he gave up run-wise. So can't wait to see him back out there. And just thought I mentioned Hurston Waldrop as well. We got moved up to AAA. He struck out 11 in AAA on Sunday. So, maybe he's getting closer to getting a chance as well as the Braves try to kind of figure out the back of this rotation. But another opportunity for Schwellenbach to prove that he belongs up here. So can't wait to see what that looks like.
Well, that was the next place I was going. Hurston Waldrop did get brought up to AAA Gwinnett, where he went 6 innings, allowed 3 earned runs, but just 1 walk, 11 strikeouts, did surrender a home run. But, by the books, a quality start. And certainly look at those 11 strikeouts and the way he'd been pitching at AA Mississippi. And you can understand why Hurston Waldrop is back with Gwinnett, where he appeared briefly last year as he pitched at every level of the minor leagues. But you're right, it does kind of give you that indication. And I think we've known this all along, that the Braves are very high on Hurston Waldrop, and they are still trying to kind of sort out what's going on in this rotation past the 4 veterans that you already have in place. Spencer Schwellenbach is the man getting the opportunity right now. I thought he had a really nice start, first time out. I know he made the mistake to Lane Thomas and paid the price with a 3-run homer, but I thought you had to be encouraged with how he attacked a major league lineup for his first time, considering that he doesn't have a ton of professional innings under his belt. Same, though, can be said for Waldrop. So we'll see how soon and when and if the Braves are ready to call on him. When exactly that will be seems to be more of a question to me than the if part of it. But they're going to be calling on Max Fried to get things started against Boston on Tuesday. Going to be a 7:10 p.m. Eastern time first pitch at Fenway Park. Fried's 5-2, 2.97 ERA. Right-hander Cutter Crawford 2-4 with a 3.29 ERA. As you mentioned, he started out really, really good this year and has kind of hit a couple of rough starts here in the more recent running for him. But Max Fried, who was kind of the opposite, 2 really bad starts, and since then has been way, way more good. More of the Max Fried we expected than not. He's flirting with no hitters. He's using like 5 or 6 different pitches to get the job done. He's just back to being the pitcher that the Braves certainly need to help lead this rotation when you consider they're having to do all of this without Spencer Strider. The Max Fried show, the Chris Sale show, what Reynaldo Lopez has done as his most recent start helped move him, I believe, into the National League's ERA lead. And then Charlie Morton getting back on track on Sunday. A lot of things to like in this rotation, even if you're trying to sort out that final spot.
You are. And we talked a lot about Chris Sale in the month of May that he had, but Max Fried, a 2.04 ERA, a 0.93 whip in the month of May. I mean, he was incredible. And, a couple of shutouts in there. Like you said, flirting with a no-hitter almost every time out. It's just fun to watch, and it's a different fun. And I talk about this all the time. It's not the Spencer Strider, sit back and see if he can blow it by everybody. It's almost like what's working that day. And he's done a lot better just commanding that fastball, especially into righties. I feel like that's a pitch that's been really good for him. And then we've seen outings where, he'll go with that curveball, which is typically a pitch he's always going to go with. But what other pitch is he going to throw? You're going to get those two. Sometimes it's been the sliders. Other times we've seen the changeup. It's just, you don't know what you're going to get with Max Fried, which we talk about facing pitchers, in a similar or in a short time frame. And that's an advantage, I think, for Max Fried. He could go out one game and he could dominate you with, 3 pitches. The next time he come out and dominate you with, a couple of different pitches. So it's what makes him so hard to hit and why he just doesn't give up a lot of hard contact. And hopefully that, continues in Boston. But again, just fun to watch. Enjoy Max Fried. Don't know what the future looks like in Atlanta, but I'll just say enjoy it right now because he's on a really special run.
Yeah, and he's doing exactly what the Braves need him to do. Max Fried allowed 10 earned runs in his first 5 innings over his first 2 starts this year. He's allowed 12 earned runs in his last 9 starts. So that'll tell you that he's gone ahead and corrected his course and looking a lot more like the guy the Braves expect and the guy that he expects to be as well. Nobody was more frustrated by those results than was Max Fried. Again, he'll be on the mound against Cutter Crawford as the Braves and Red Sox open up a quick 2-game series. That'll happen on Tuesday night. We look forward to catching you on the Braves postcast a little bit more this week, including the Braves stop in Boston and, of course, the stop in Washington that will follow that. That's going to bring us to the end, though, of this edition of the Braves postcast. Make sure you're subscribed to Locked On Sports Atlanta on YouTube. Leave us those likes and comments. Share the show with a friend and subscribe to Locked On Braves wherever you get your podcast. Once again, the Braves able to take a weekend series from the Oakland Athletics to close out their homestand, taking 2 out of 3 from Oakland with a 3-1 win on Sunday. For Jake Mastroianni, I'm Grant McAuley. We will catch you next time. And until then, so long, everyone.